Welcome to the last word on rugby. It's the podcast where everyone will get a last word in on just how the Boks fared against England, the opening games to the Nations Championship, what worked, what did not work. There's lots to unpack, and of course, weekly we bring you everything rugby on the last word on rugby. Now, if you haven't yet, click that like button on our channel on YouTube at The Clutch ZA. Share this video as we look to bring you the latest international news. Of course, the Springboks dominating not just the discourse, but also England. And with me, to dive a bit deeper into everything that happened this past weekend and then looking forward to the next round of championship matches. Mike Greenaway, who was privy to all the action at Ellis Park, and then John Goliath will give us his armchair views and everything that he picked up that we might not have seen. Guys, welcome back. It's been an action-packed weekend. Rugby from early morning Saturday, and it ended off with some brilliant games the evening this past Saturday. Mike, I'm going to dive into the box first and want to chat with you just on what your overall thoughts were in terms of how the box dismantled England and how they avoided the ghost of Ellis Park of 2025. And then uh, quickly, quickly, just on that mix up and the two Damians, who do you feel and who do you think was the man of the match?
Yeah, look, I was lucky enough to be at Ellis Park, and I'm not sure if the gears sort of came through on the TVs, but it was certainly evident there at Ellis Park. Yeah, it was a lacquer occasion. Yeah, the game itself, apart from maybe the second quarter of the game, the Springboks just completely dominated, especially the collisions. I thought they were just completely on top of England in that department. They got that fast start, which was a complete opposite to that very first game under Rassie there against England when it was England that led 21-0 after how many minutes. So they got the fast start they had spoken about. England, the only time they were really in that game was from about the 19th minute to the 40th minute. I think it coincided maybe a bit with Curtly Arendse going off with that
That
yellow
yellow,
card.
yeah.
But yeah, that's all England had. And I mean, the way the Springboks finished, if there was another 5 or 10 minutes there, they would have gone, others would have gone to 60. I thought, like I said, the loose forwards were unbelievable. Pieter-Steph du Toit playing like a loose forward, even though he was at lock. And Jasper Wiese, wow, what a performance by that guy. Cheapers, he's just on another level altogether. Yeah, and the non-event of the entire evening was Henry Pollock coming on to a cacophony of boos and then not really doing anything. And it was quite funny. We had Dwayne Vermeulen in a press conference on Tuesday afternoon. And people might remember in March of this year, just after the Six Nations had ended, Dwayne said, yeah, I'd like to maybe make a comeback just for 10 minutes when the Boks play England on July the 4th. And he was asked about that. Well, do you still have the same opinion? He said, I wasn't needed, guys. I wasn't needed. I had my boots in the change room, but I wasn't needed. And that really summed it up. I thought a dominant display by the Springboks, and England were quite cowed at the end.
Yeah, the Dwayne Vermeulen was almost needed before the game
Yeah,
when they
all
lost
the withdrawals.
lost
Yeah,
Eben Etzebeth, lost Siya Kolisi. I mean,
yeah.
it was 240 odd caps. that went missing at the start of the game. That is unbelievable. And yet the guys coming in, Mike, you mentioned Pieter-Steph du Toit. What kind of machine,
Yeah.
cyborg rugby player that bruh is.
Yeah.
He is incredible. His support play, led the physical charge, in the lineouts
Mhm.
as well, all over the park. He's just a machine. It doesn't look like he hasn't played rugby for months.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy just came back from an injury.
Yeah.
What on earth? What a
And,
player.
and put into the second row.
And put into the second row. Exactly, exactly. Just an amazing rugby player. And I think you mentioned Jasper Visser, where
Yeah.
there was I think somewhere in the other pods in England where the guy said if he came around the corner like he did for I think in the first half where he was angry after being bumped off when I think the
When
England lock
George
went
Martin scored, yeah.
when George Martin scored. He said after that it looked like the brothers got angrier.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it just shows. I think when last year when we saw that when he doesn't play, he was suspended for a few
Yeah.
matches. When he doesn't play, the box actually struggle a bit because he's that physical battering ram in the middle of the park, and he's also another player who's very good at slowing the ball down on the ground. Also steals a fair bit of ball, and when the Boks are in defense the tackle fight, which I think at the end of the day England couldn't handle.
Yeah.
The physicality because every breakdown was like life or death for England. And they only managed to get some joy when they had 14, when the box had 14 men, and they managed to turn the box kicking in behind. And they turned because of the box's rush defense.
Mm.
That is when England got some joy, but other than that, they were just totally outplayed.
Sorry,
Yeah.
man. And on the loose forwards, we have to mention Paul de Villiers on debut as well. I thought he was
Yeah.
outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on that.
Mm.
He maybe would have trained to be there as a someone to take over, but he also said he only heard on Saturday morning that he was going to play. So the mind shift to make that, yes, I'm not waiting my chance anymore, and I'm not coming off the bench. I'm starting in
Mm.
place of Siya Kolisi, the national captain, and the way he performed and exceeded expectations. Although I feel the referee didn't reward him as much as he should have. I mean, he's got this brilliant technique where he makes himself almost as low as the ground. His bum is almost touching the ground when he poaches balls. He looks
He,
like
he, he spreads his legs.
yes, but he's still
Yeah,
supporting
it's
his
like
body
almost
weight.
almost in a Van Damme split.
I was just gonna say, a la Simone Biles, at the Olympics, but he's still supporting his own weight because the strength in his legs and in his upper
Mm.
body is
But
just
that's
phenomenal. And the fact that he wasn't rewarded at times when he was clearly over the ball, um, it shows that certain refs still needs to get used to his technique. I don't think that ref has ever refed him, but we see him get rewarded quite a lot in the URC. So I think the more chances he gets, he'll just get better. But yes, like what a performance! The same with Cameron Hanekom stepping in off the
Mm.
bench, and just putting his body on the line, playing in a role that he doesn't normally play. So he's either eight or six. He played a seven role. And you could see there was a slight bit of imbalance in that loose trio, but Peter Steph made up for it with what he did around the park. In terms of having two eighth men playing, one playing at seven, and then also two six flankers. I think Cameron is way more six than what he is a seven.
Mm.
So there was a bit of imbalance there, but the box negated that quite well with the way they handled the loss of two of the the most experienced guys in the team. Another good thing for me was the impact the bench made. Yes, we didn't see a proper bomb squad coming on because Gerrie Steenekamp had to come on for Ox early. But then the impact Zach Porton made, the impact Jan Hendrik made when he eventually came on he came on as a loose head, eh, Mike? I'm not mistaken with that because
Yeah,
Gerard
that's right.
was taken off
Mm.
again. But just I mean, whoever steps into that bench role, that bomb squad role, they know what they must come and do.
Yeah, it's
It-
it was unbelievable seeing Zach Porton carry like like he did. I mean, how that guy is so strong.
Yes, Mike.
Um, for a tight, and he's a tight head prop, not
Tight
even
head,
a
yeah.
normal loose head. And we
Yeah,
saw Ox. We saw Ox. I think that's where Ox got injured because
yeah,
he
If you
stretched his leg.
actually,
yeah.
if you actually go look back, sorry for interrupting you now, but if you go look back, Ox was clean through. He got tackled, and then at the last minute, I think it was an England lock that just plopped down. Ox was already on the floor, and the England
Mm.
player fell on top of him, and I think that's where he hurt his knee. I
Mm.
don't think a lot of people pick that up, but that's actually quite
Mm.
serious. A player being on the ground, the Ethan Hooker incident and someone coming
Yeah,
Yeah.
to fall on him. But yeah, sorry, John.
Yeah. No, mentioned the bomb squad. Even um, the scrumming. I think the jury's still out there with his scrumming, but I think working with Dan, and if he can continue in this vein about his carrying, he could be the ultimate World Cup impact player. And at the moment, the Bob tighted line is out the door. With Thomas the Toy, you've got Wilco Low this coming back this weekend. You still got Franz Malherbe. Who knows if when he will be back, but apparently he will be back next season.
Mm.
Um, and it's just unbelievable at this
Hmm.
point. You've got Carlos Sadi as well waiting in the
Carlos
wings.
Sadi, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Vincent Koch still
unbelievable.
there.
Vincent
yeah.
Koch is still hanging around at 45, still there.
Guys, I want to just bring something up again about Paul de Villiers. And I know we have said it before, but Leighton, you spoke about his strength in his legs. I just wanted to remind viewers, listeners, that when the Springboks did their fitness tests, when they got into camp 5 weeks ago,
Hmm.
that guy came number one. He's the fittest player in the Springbok squad, and I guess that's also why he can do those ridiculous squats.
Yeah.
But yeah, um,
And what was I mean, people see him as a small guy, but he
Hmm.
was first phase, he actually took a lot of those balls up. And he actually made lekker ground. So he
Hmm.
was I was surprised. I thought Cameron Hanekom would maybe be, or Jasper Wiese would maybe be the
Would be
guy to
that guy.
carry of
Yeah.
that, yeah, because Sia does that job obviously, so probably didn't want to change the system too much. That's
Hmm.
why Paul de Villiers was carrying, but he did carry well.
Yeah. No, and guys, another thing about this box squad at the moment, the depth that they have and the cohesion in the side. My feeling is, and it's a very strong feeling, and it's not a feeling of arrogance or anything. Rassie would not want this for his team. He wouldn't want them to think this or anything. But
mm,
the only time I feel at this stage that they will lose a game is when they think that they are already there when they rock up for a game and they can just
mm,
be what they were
mm,
maybe against England a week ago instead of starting from scratch again and building what they know they can build. If
mm.
they play against themselves, that's the only time another team I feel will be able to beat them.
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen. That Australia game. At Ellis Park,
Mm.
um, where they were off to a flyer and then they just started going out of the pattern that was set out for them because things just came so
Yeah.
easily. Um, Looking at Mike,
Uh,
if we
mm,
gradually phase
mm,
into what's waiting next,
mm.
it's a much changed team
Yeah,
for Saturday's deal with Scotland, but still a very, very strong
yeah,
side that can go and do the goods.
yeah. Yeah, and and maybe just as we segue, I think is the word from one game to the next, is I see Damian Willemse has been moved from fullback to 12. Maybe it's because he didn't play well enough to get man of the match against England that Russia's moved him to 12.
Yes. What
No,
happened
I mean, if you
there?
oh my word. I mean, there is Damian Willemse playing the game of his life. I mean,
In his
you
50th.
were doing player ratings, Leighton. I mean, it was hard to actually fault that guy. I mean, that's as close
Hmm.
to a 10 out of 10 as you can get. Um, uh, well, apparently what happened there is the commentators, the SuperSport commentators agreed in their little box at Ellis Park. No, well, Damian Willemse has walked it. Then someone gets the message from them and goes down to the crew on the pitch side and gives them the name. But that person, I think this is what happened, got confused between the
The
Damians
Damians.
and gave the name Damien de Allender to the person who was handing over the awards. And you know, things are so professional, and it's the
Yeah.
modern era, and this and that. But human error can still creep in, and
And
obviously
it
Yeah.
could
did.
be, I mean, the message could have went down to the stadium announcer, and he was still obsessed with Henry Pollock. Because apparently, I don't know, some people were saying when he came on, people he was encouraging the crowd to have a go at him, apparently, something. And maybe so he was still in Henry Pollock euphoria that he actually gave the wrong name, if it was him who gave the name. It's actually.
And Damien de Allender, look, he didn't have a bad game, but he did look a little like confused as no,
Bewildered,
but as he
yeah.
was talking, he was thinking,
What was
"Jeepers,
that?
what?"
But do you guys remember actually him winning a man of the match? I can't remember him ever winning a man of the match award and doing the
Yeah,
sort of being interviewed
yeah.
because he had a
Oh.
lot to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had a lot to say. That interview window, he was like, "Nah, I'm gonna take this
Uh,
opportunity and
You
bless
My
you.
you
time.
It's my
you
time
guys
to
can
shine."
you guys can give me the information, yeah, because I was in the stands. I wasn't watching on the TV. Was there an actual award handed over?
Yeah,
Because
they
Yeah.
handed
Yeah.
over
sometimes
for
there's a
the
check. There wasn't
yeah,
a
they
check, was
interviewed
there?
him. I just
Yeah.
remember the interview, and the interview went on for about 4 or 5 minutes. He
And
wasn't
I,
gonna stop talking.
Look at
And,
this rate, if there was someone in the stands or someone close to the field whose name was Damien, they could have gotten that award.
yeah, it was bad,
yeah. So anyway, we
so
got
bad.
Damien at 12. And that is an interesting call. I guess 12 is one area where, look, we've got outstanding couple of players, as in
Hmm.
obviously the Damien that got the award, and Andre Esterhuizen. But how much more is there after that? Let's just say that those
Yeah.
two guys got injured, Damien de Allende and Andre
Hmm.
Esterhuizen. Who would then start? And I would say it would be Damien Willemse. So I guess Rusty wants to just let him have some more game time in that position, because there's not a heck of a lot after Damien, I don't think, in the 12 pecking order, unless I've missed someone, guys.
Lucanio Am, I guess
Possibly, yeah.
they've been talking about him
Yeah,
as a 12.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they're thin there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, for sure. But I think also Andre Esterhuizen, is he what's his status like? Was he because he went off with a head knock?
yeah,
Yeah.
So that's why he probably was in line to start this game.
definitely.
Yeah. Most
I would
likely. Yeah.
imagine with Damien maybe getting a rest or so, but now he's
Mm.
been trusted into 12 with Fassi coming back. And Fassi, if you remember, the last time Damien was at 12 and Fussy was at 15, they gave the All Blacks the most almighty hiding
Yeah.
in Wellington.
Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see. For me, the biggest um not surprised, but the biggest sort of talking point is probably Ambrose Papier coming back with at his home ground at Loftus. He hasn't played for a few years now, but Ambrose Papier back. He had a probably the best South African scrum half in the URC.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal with ball in hand from broken play. But this is probably going to test his sort of his game management now, which there was always been question marks about. But he's a hell of a player. Let's see how he goes. But the box kicking, that is, we saw that against
Yes. Right.
England. They kicked
Yeah.
more than any other team over the weekend. So that is their main weapon because we all know the wingers get up and compete
Mm.
and they smother you there when they win the ball back. But when they win the ball back and it's broken play, that is where Ambrose Papier lives. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking about the combination of that team, you can clearly see there are certain pairings that will be playing together, or certain th one, two, or three guys who know each other. They will play together. I think having Emrose and Andre together at Loftus, their home ground, to drive the Boxers game plan. And making those changes, that glue is needed at nine and 10. I know a lot of people have been reporting that it's what, nine Bulls players in that what, the match day 23. But we must remind them that it's Wilco Louw is no longer a Bulls player. He signed for the Stormers from the 1st of July, and then Ruan Nortje is a Kubota Spears player. So we'll have seven Bulls in that matchday squad, and surely they should take the lead when it comes to using that home ground knowledge. They've done well in the URC, and they've played brilliantly up until that final against Leinster. So I'm quite intrigued to see where the changes with the 6-2 bench split will take place. Because Kieran Horn is the fullback fly off, but then if they do want to give Damian Willems a bit of a rest at 12, how does this sound, guys? Shifting Andre to 12 and bringing in Kieran Horn at 10 and giving Apalele a full game. Um, I mean, Rassie has been, or he tried Kieran at number 10, if it allows for it. That's just my theories that there's quite a interchangeable 6-2 bench split. We know Grant can go onto the wing. One of the wingers can maybe move to fullback if push comes to shove. So there's a lot of things that can happen with this with the squad that he picked.
Yeah, and I think Fassi needs to play for as long as he possibly can.
Yeah,
He has
100%.
not had a lot of rugby for a very long time, so I think that he needs to really try and play the full 80 if possible. I mean, depending on the score and then what Rassie wants to do. But I mean, um, Damien Willems could also theoretically go to 10. There's also that possibility. But I think Rassie would want to just see how it plays out. Injuries do happen. But talking about 10, yeah, how's this old Andre Pollard? Now, all of a sudden, sees the spotlight on him. I mean, this guy, what a World Cup hero he's been. And I think that some of the criticism is fair. He does seem to have been just a little bit off the boil in how the Bulls finished their season. There's talk that maybe, his style of fly half play might be at odds with Tony Ball. Is it or isn't it? Or what better platform than Saturday at Loftus for Andre to show that he can play how Tony Brown wants him to play, or whatever game anyone wants him to play, or just play a Andre Pollard game. But I think there's a lot for Andre to play for. And I think, and look, he's a vastly experienced guy and he can play with almost any scrum half. But I think it is good that he's playing with the guy that he's played, I don't know, 15, 16 games with this year. So hopefully Andre goes well.
Yeah, and John, just wanna, Mike touched on it now, and Tony Ball and Andre playing it. We know Ambrose can do it. But if push comes to shove, and we know Scotland, they love to play a running game. There's no doubt about that. They're physical forwards, but they love sending the ball out to the back. I don't know if you watched the late game between them and Argentina, but I mean, for a team to be physically all over Argentina like that, and then being able to also run Argentina ragged on the flanks with the back line. What kind of game are you expecting from Scotland? First of all, do you see them doing the same that they did in South America? And then, do you foresee the Tony Ball being played on Saturday by the Boks, or are we going to revert to a more Loftus-styled game, if you know what I mean?
I think the one area of the Boxers' performance against England that concerned me was the defense, where they hop into the line and trying to go for intercepts and go one-handed, try to get the miracle ball. And that is where Curtly Arendse got given a yellow card because there was an overlap. It happened again, but Grant Williams at that point went with two hands, and he was lucky to get away with just maybe the knock on. So for me, we're gonna see Scotland. They've got very smart operators at the back, where they're going to look for that space to try and beat the Boxers' rush defense, and maybe isolate, trying to get overlaps by isolating the outside winger, and that winger will then be forced to make a decision to either go for the ball or go for the tackle. And for me, that is the Boks scramble well, but you can't go on like that, where you go for those 50-50 little intercepts trying to prevent the ball from going over. Then the whole team is going to be sent over in one game. So that for me is going to be key. I think Scotland are really going to. The game starts up front, and Scotland will know they are going to be in a battle. They had the wood over the Argentinian forwards, but coming here to Loftus at altitude, and dealing with the Springboks is a whole other matter. I mean, even England, even without it, like, yeah, if there's one team that can go toe to toe in the physical stakes with the Boks, it's England, and look what happened to them. So before you can actually chuck the ball around, you actually have to win the ball. So and for me, that is going to be key. But outside those outside channels, and the way the Boks defend, I think that is somewhere, that is an area where Scotland will be looking to maybe get some positive results there.
Yeah, I would agree, John. That and we saw it a lot, in fact, with the Bulls as well. And I'm getting to Kane and Moody is what I'm saying to you. The number of times South African teams look vulnerable in that outside channel between 13 and 14, where they're not quite sure how to defend, or not quite sure whether to go for the ball or not. And we've seen yellow cards aplenty come from that area. It is definitely a part of the South African game that needs work on. Just on Scotland, I'm just wondering what shape they are going to be in. That is one heck of a travel they've got. I mean, they Buenos Aires to Joburg, arriving on the Tuesday in South Africa. Then it is altitude. Um, yeah, so they've had no acclimatization there. Buenos Aires is not at altitude. They're arriving late in the week. Um, as Highveld people say, it's a different kind of cold here. I mean, Scotland obviously is a cold place, but that altitude coldness can wear you down. I'm wondering if they're going to fade in the last 20 minutes. Obviously, the Boks have been up here at altitude for 5 weeks or so, apart from a couple of days down at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. But I've got a feeling that Scotland might feel it in that last 20 minutes because of the travel and the altitude.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a interesting prospect that awaits the Boks and Springbok supporters this weekend. Yeah, that Scotland team, they look dangerous, and it's a much changed Bok team. But then again, Juan Venter will take the lead there in the number one jersey, and he will hopefully have some Scottish secrets to help the Boks in the scrum. And then, yeah, the back line, quite interesting, just how they are put together. But I feel they'll have the upper hand when it comes to the aerial gameplay. Maybe not in terms of gelling, but the Boks find a way to win games when people write them off. So yeah, but we look forward to another strong weekend of results. Guys, you've given me your thoughts on how the game can pan out, so I'm not gonna put you on the spot this weekend. But yeah, thanks again for the chat. It was lekker. Some good insights on just what has been happening in the Bok camp. Mike, we look forward to another week of your expertise there when we're back. And when they're heading to Durban for that last test against Wales. I would think that you are traveling back to your native to to be with them and get some warmer weather from us here in the cold Cape. Enjoy this weekend's game. Yeah, and we'll be back next week with more of the last word on rugby. Now, if you haven't yet, our channel is at the Clutch ZA on YouTube. Share this podcast as we look to bring you the latest insight and news on what exactly is happening in the Bok camp. Plenty of changes this week, but that's just to build depth in terms of the World Cup plans and, of course, rugby's greatest rivalry coming to us later this year. Mike, John, thanks again for joining, and we'll chat next week again. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Yes, boys.